Donald Trump has dedicated 50 years to purchasing freedom from consequences. Reveal the scandal, pay her off, shortchange the builder, drown him in litigation costs, face fraud charges, retain more counsel. For half a century, this approach never malfunctioned, yet he had never encountered an attorney whose resources he couldn't eclipse until a Texas public defender entered ABC News carrying 6 dossiers and possessing absolutely no desire to settle. Before the broadcast concluded, Trump would admit on national TV to something his $2,000 an hour attorneys had dedicated decades to concealing. Within 30 days, that footage would be screened in 3 distinct tribunals, and a single utterance would dog him eternally. That's just smart business. What compelled him to utter it is something you need to hear. The affront arrived preceding the initial inquiry. The ABC News set was arranged for a conflict. Dual lecterns, a host table, and a crowd of 200 chosen to symbolize Americans and the judicial process, including attorneys, legal scholars, past public defenders, several individuals unjustly imprisoned and subsequently cleared, and dispersed among them everyday people who had experienced their own encounters with the legal system. David Muir occupied center stage, prepared to facilitate what ABC advertised as Justice in America, a national conversation. The broadcaster had pledged a meaningful examination of legal principles, responsibility, and the judicial framework. Donald Trump possessed alternative intentions. Prior to beginning, he stated, angling toward his mic with the assurance of someone who had never lost a court battle he couldn't pay to win, "Allow me to remark on my adversary this evening." He signaled toward Crockett with a discounting hand motion. "She is a public defender from Texas, which is quaint, very adorable." He laughed softly, regarding the spectators as though anticipating they would partake in the humor. "I have engaged with the globe's finest attorneys, the absolute supreme, Roy Cohn, the premier lawyer who ever existed, mentored me, everyone recognized him, mentored me. What a brilliant mind. My present legal team, apex of their profession, all of them. These are individuals who attended elite institutions, who bill thousands hourly, who have never forfeited a significant matter." He rotated back to Crockett. "And you are a public defender, implying, let us be truthful, if you possess skill, you would be employed by a legitimate firm earning substantial income. Rather, you are shielding felons unable to hire superior counsel." He shrugged. "I have had superior attorneys fetch my coffee." A soft noise moved through the crowd. Some chuckled awkwardly while others readjusted in their chairs. A woman in the primary row, a Chicago public defender, although Trump was unaware, gazed at him with unconcealed disdain. David Muir cleared his throat. "Mr. President, perhaps we ought to commence with opening declarations." "I am merely establishing expectations, David," Trump brushed him aside. "Everyone needs to comprehend what we are facing here. I am a businessman who has engaged the finest legal minds in America. She is from Legal Aid." He pronounced the term as if it left a foul flavor. "It is an unequal contest, but I will attempt to go easy on her." He relaxed back, content with his initial barrage. Crockett had not shifted, had not responded. She remained at her podium with hands clasped, her look agreeable, nearly tranquil, the look of a woman who had endured worse from superior opponents and persisted. "Congresswoman Crockett," David Muir stated, "do you wish to reply?" Crockett inclined toward her microphone. When she spoke, her tone was composed, deliberate, nearly soft. "Gratitude for that evaluation of my vocation, Mr. President. I value your honesty regarding your perspective on the judicial system." She hesitated. "You are correct. I served as a public defender for 6 years in Dallas, and you are correct that public defenders do not bill $2,000 hourly. We do not operate luxury vehicles or don designer attire. We lack corner suites in Manhattan high-rises, so I am pleased we concur on that." She grinned faintly. "However, I believe you might be mistaken regarding what public defenders actually perform, so allow me to clarify, and subsequently, if you don't object, I possess several inquiries regarding your history with attorneys, particularly why you have required such a vast number of them." 40 minutes preceding the transmission, in Trump's green room, the atmosphere had been exultant. "This is going to be magnificent," Trump declared, straightening his cravat in the looking glass. A public defender, they are dispatching a public defender to debate me. His campaign director swiped through briefing memos on a tablet. Sir, Congresswoman Crockett is actually quite proficient at. She defends criminals for a living, individuals unable to afford genuine lawyers. Trump flattened his hair. You know what that indicates to me? She couldn't succeed in the real world, couldn't hack it at a major firm, couldn't establish a client roster, so she accepted the government position because it was her sole option. Sir, public defenders are actually losers predominantly. I have observed them in court. They arrive with their small binders, their inexpensive suits, they mutter through their presentations, and then my attorneys demolish them invariably. He turned from the mirror, content with his image. 5 minutes, that is all I require tonight. 5 minutes and she will be entirely overwhelmed. Eric Trump, loitering near the exit, agreed zealously. She has no shot, Dad. You possess the world's finest lawyers, the best. Roy Cohn taught me everything. Assail, 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 never concede anything, force them to substantiate every single item, and even when they substantiate it, deny it regardless. Trump smiled at the recollection. That is how you triumph. That is how I have always triumphed. His campaign manager shared a troubled look with the communications director. Neither voiced their thoughts. That Crockett had spent 6 years cross-examining witnesses, revealing falsehoods and dismantling narratives that didn't hold up. That she had done it in courtrooms where the consequences were life and death. That she had done it against prosecutors with limitless assets before judges who anticipated her failure. But Trump wasn't interested in hearing it. He never was. 5 minutes, he reiterated. Then everyone will witness the result when you dispatch a public defender to perform a genuine lawyer's task. 4 levels beneath, in a more compact preparation room, Jasmine Crockett was not studying policy documents. She was reviewing sworn testimony. The Friel matter, she murmured, leafing through a binder. 1990 cabinet firm, $400,000 outstanding, settled for $70,000 after Friel's company declared bankruptcy due to legal costs. She placed it aside and selected another. Tasa Corporation, drywall contractors, $1.2 million in outstanding invoices. Case stalled for 4 years, settled for 30 cents on the dollar after 3 subcontractors shuttered. Another binder, O'Brien Painting, family concern, 3 generations. Performed work on Trump Tower, cheated out of $150,000. Father suffered a stroke amid the litigation. Son assumed control, ultimately settled for $50,000 merely to cease it. Her chief of staff, Marcus Chen, observed from the entryway, "What is the quantity of these?" "Thousands." Crockett didn't raise her eyes. "I have extracted the ones with superior documentation, the ones where we possess depositions, court files, testimony, the ones where the pattern is irrefutable." "What is the pattern?" Crockett finally glanced up, her expression composed, but something lay beneath it. Not precisely rage, something frigid, more concentrated. "The pattern is that he locates small contractors, individuals needing employment who are enthusiastic to work on a Trump project. They execute the task, they execute it well, and then when payment is due, he tenders a fraction of the debt, 20 cents on the dollar, 30 if they are fortunate. And when they decline, he instructs them to litigate. He knows they cannot afford to. He knows that even if they prevail, which can require years, the legal expenses will devastate them. So they either accept the insufficient tender or they go bankrupt attempting to combat him." She shut the binder. "He terms it negotiation, he terms it smart business, but there is an alternative term for utilizing your influence to demolish people unable to strike back." "What is that?" "In criminal law, we term it extortion. In civil law, we term it abuse of process." She rose and adjusted her blazer. "Tonight we are going to term it what it is, an admission." Marcus frowned. "You believe he will actually confess to it?" Crockett smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "He won't be capable of restraining himself. He is proud of it. He believes it makes him astute. He has been boasting about it in depositions for decades. That's just good business. That's how the game is played. He doesn't even comprehend that it is wrong. All I must do is pose the correct inquiries in the correct sequence, and he will reveal to the entire nation precisely who he is." She gathered her binders, 6 of them, each tabbed and color-coded. He thinks public defenders are weaklings. He thinks we are the lawyers unable to succeed elsewhere. He has no conception of our actual functions. What are your actual functions? Crockett moved toward the exit. We cross-examine individuals who lie professionally. We expose narratives that don't tally. We battle every single day against a framework engineered to crush our clients. She paused at the doorway. Donald Trump isn't the most formidable person I have confronted in a courtroom. He is merely the loudest. Back on stage, Crockett was elucidating public defenders' actual duties. Allow me to inform you about my caseload, she stated, her tone still composed, still conversational. When I served as a public defender in Dallas, I managed over 200 cases annually. That isn't a typo, 200. Homicide cases, assault cases, narcotics cases, cases where my clients faced decades incarcerated. She looked at Trump. Your attorneys, the ones billing $2,000 hourly, how many cases do they manage per year? 10, 15? They possess teams of associates to perform research, paralegals to submit motions, investigators to unearth evidence. I had myself a pile of files and clients counting on me as the sole barrier between them and a system desiring to crush them. Trump adjusted at his lectern. That is very moving, but I am not concluded. The sharpness in her tone caused him to cease. You stated public defenders are lawyers unable to succeed elsewhere. Let me inform you what public defenders actually perform. We work longer hours than your attorneys for a fraction of the compensation. We manage more causes with fewer resources against prosecutors possessing the entire weight of the government supporting them. We fight and frequently we lose because the system is engineered for our defeat, but we fight regardless because that is what the Constitution mandates. Everyone receives a defense, even individuals unable to afford $2,000 hourly, even individuals abandoned by everyone else, even individuals the remainder of society has discarded. She hesitated. Your attorneys make predicaments vanish. They compensate accusers. They conceal evidence within NDAs. They prolong cases until the opposition goes bankrupt. That isn't law. That is warfare by alternative means. Warfare only the wealthy can afford to wage. Public defenders, we stand in open court and we battle utilizing nothing but the facts and the law. We lack money. We lack teams of associates. We possess only the truth and the Constitution. She gazed at Trump with something resembling pity. You have spent your entire existence encircled by lawyers who tell you what you desire to hear, who make your troubles go away, who shield you from consequences. You have never faced an attorney who actually desired the truth to emerge. She smiled. Until tonight. A woman in the audience lifted her hand. She was perhaps 50, professionally attired, possessing the weary eyes of someone who had witnessed too much. David Muir nodded toward her. My name is Rebecca Friel Morrison. My father was Edward Friel Jr. He owned a cabinet-making company in Philadelphia, 3rd generation. My grandfather initiated it. My father constructed it, and I was intended to assume control. Her voice was steady, but a tremor existed beneath it. In 1988, my father secured the contract of a lifetime. Donald Trump's Taj Mahal casino, $400,000 to construct the bases for the slot machines. It was the largest job we had ever possessed. My father was so proud, he employed additional workers, purchased new machinery, worked his crew overtime to meet the deadline. She looked at Trump. He delivered everything on schedule, on budget, magnificent work, and then you declined to pay. Trump commenced speaking, but she continued. You tendered him $70,000 under 20% of the debt. When he declined, you instructed him to sue. You knew he couldn't afford it. You knew that even if he prevailed, the legal costs would devastate him. He sued regardless because he believed in the system. He believed that if you performed good work and maintained your word, you would receive what was owed. Her voice cracked slightly. The litigation required 3 years. 3 years of depositions and motions and postponements. Your lawyers, your $2,000 an hour lawyers, they filed motion after motion. They dragged it out. They made it as costly as possible. My father suffered a heart attack in the 2nd year. The stress, the betrayal, watching everything he had built slip away because a billionaire decided he didn't feel like paying his bills. He died in 1994, still fighting, still believing he'd receive justice. She wiped her eyes. We settled after he passed. My mother couldn't endure it further. We received $100,000, a quarter of the debt, and we signed an NDA stating we'd never discuss it. But you know what? I am finished being silent. I am finished protecting the man who killed my father. She looked directly at Trump. You didn't pull the trigger, but you killed him. You killed him with lawyers and delays and the arrogance of a man who thinks he can take whatever he desires from whoever he desires. So I have one question for you, Mr. Trump, just one. Was it worth it? Was the $300,000 you saved worth my father's life? The studio was absolutely silent. Trump's face had turned red. I don't recall every contractor. His name was Edward Friel Jr. Rebecca's voice was ice. He possessed a wife named Mary. He possessed 2 daughters. He coached Little League on weekends. He attended church every Sunday. He constructed beautiful things with his hands. And you destroyed him because you were able to. Those were business disputes. His one of thousands. This from another voice in the audience. A man stood up, perhaps 60, wearing a work jacket featuring a faded company logo. My name is James Mitchell. I performed electrical work on Trump Tower in the 80s. We were owed $180,000. We received $45,000 after 2 years of fighting. My partner ate his guns 6 months later. Another person stood, a woman, younger, Maria Santos. My mother cleaned rooms at the Trump Plaza Hotel for 7 years. When it went bankrupt, she was owed 3 months of back pay. She never received a dime. She is still working at 74 because she cannot afford to retire. Another, Robert Chen. My family's restaurant provided catering for Trump events in Atlantic City. We were owed $35,000. He told us to sue. We couldn't afford to. We closed 2 years later. Another and another and another. 6 people standing, 6 stories of work performed and money owed and lives destroyed. 6 faces looking at Donald Trump with the accumulated grief of decades. A 7th person stood, an older man, perhaps 70, wearing a worn suit that had clearly been his best once. My name is William Patterson. I owned a plumbing company in New Jersey. We performed work on 3 Trump properties in the late 80s, hotels, casinos, the works. His voice was gruff but steady. $340,000, that is what we were owed. I had 12 employees, good men, skilled workers, families depending on them. He looked at Trump. You tendered us $85,000, take it or leave it. When I refused, you told me, and I'll never forget this, you said, Bill, you seem like a nice guy, but I have 50 lawyers and you have what, a brother-in-law who passed the bar? Take the money, at least you'll possess something. He shook his head slowly. I didn't take it. I believed in the system. I believed that if you perform honest work, you receive honest pay. 3 years later, my company was gone. My employees, those 12 families, they all had to find other jobs. Some of them lost their houses. One of them, Tommy Reeves, he'd worked for me 15 years. His wife left him when they lost everything. Last I heard, he was living in his car. I received $120,000 in settlement, less than half the debt. After legal fees, I possessed about $60,000 remaining. That is what I received for 3 years of fighting, for losing my company, for watching my employees' lives fall apart. He pointed at Trump. You cost me everything, and you didn't even know my name until tonight. An 8th person stood, a woman, young, maybe early 30s. My name is Jennifer Huang. I am a lawyer now, but my story commences with my parents. Her voice trembled slightly. My parents owned a small landscaping company in Queens. They immigrated from Taiwan in 1975. They built that company from nothing. 1 truck, 1 lawnmower, working 18 hours daily until they possessed something real. In 1991, they secured a contract to perform landscaping for a Trump property, $75,000. It was the largest job they had ever possessed. My mother cried when they signed the contract. She thought it meant they had finally succeeded. She wiped her eyes. You paid them $15,000, 20 cents on the dollar. When my father complained, your people told him he was fortunate to receive anything. They told him if he caused trouble, they would report him to immigration. My father was a citizen. He'd been a citizen for 15 years, but he was scared. Scared of lawyers, scared of the government, scared of powerful white men in suits, so he accepted the $15,000 and never discussed it again. He died in 2008. He never witnessed what I became. He never knew I attended law school because of what happened to him. He never knew I spent the last 10 years performing pro bono work for immigrants cheated by people like you. She looked at Trump with cold fury. You didn't just steal money from my parents. You stole their dignity. You made them feel small and powerless in a country they loved, a country they had worked their whole lives to belong to. My father's name was Chenwei Huang. He was a good man. He performed good work, and you treated him like he was nothing. The audience was absolutely silent. Several people were crying. Even David Moore seemed shaken. Trump looked around the room, his expression shifting from defensive to something approaching panic. These are ancient history. Business is complicated. Let me pose a question, Mr. President. Crockett's voice cut through the chaos, calm and precise. A simple question, yes or no. Trump turned to her, almost grateful for the interruption. Have you ever refused to pay a contractor the full amount you owed them after they completed the work you asked them to do? Silence. Yes or no? In business you negotiate. That isn't yes or no. Let me rephrase. Crockett's tone was patient, almost gentle, the voice of a lawyer who had posed this question 1,000 times. Have you ever refused to pay someone the full amount you agreed to pay them after they completed the work you asked them to do, yes or no? Long pause. Sometimes the work wasn't up to standard, so yes, the answer is yes. Crockett nodded. Let me pose a follow-up. When contractors complained that you weren't paying them, did you ever tell them to sue you? If they had a problem, they could go to court. Did you ever say, and I am quoting from a deposition in the Friel case, "Sue me, I have more lawyers than you. You will go bankrupt before I pay you a dime"? Trump's mouth opened and closed. I don't recall that specific. I possess the transcript. Crockett held up a document. Page 47. Mr. Trump, did you tell Mr. Friel to sue you? I may have stated something similar to that. Did you tell him he would go bankrupt before you paid him? I was making a point about the legal system. She set the document down. You told a man who performed $400,000 of work for you that you wouldn't pay him, and that if he attempted to force you, you'd destroy him with legal fees, and then you performed exactly that. His company went bankrupt, his health failed, he died. She looked at Trump. Was that negotiation? Was that smart business? Trump's face had turned from red to something approaching purple. This is a setup. This entire event is a setup. You brought these people here. You staged this. I didn't bring anyone, Mr. President. ABC invited audience members. These people applied independently. They have been waiting decades for someone to pose these questions to you. These are disgruntled they are seeking money. They already received their money, pennies on the dollar after you crushed them with legal fees. They aren't here for money. They are here for the truth. Crockett picked up another document. Let me inquire about your overall legal strategy, Mr. President. You have been involved in over 4,000 lawsuits, is that correct? I am a businessman. Lawsuits happen. 4,000 lawsuits. That is roughly one lawsuit every 3 days for your entire adult life. She tilted her head. Does that seem normal to you? When you are successful, people sue you. Actually, in about 2,000 of those cases, you were the plaintiff. You sued other people, small businesses, contractors, cities, individuals, often for millions of dollars. She pulled up a summary. And in another 1,500 cases, you were sued for non-payment, breach of contract, fraud, refusing to pay people who performed work for you. Those were all business disputes. Let me ask you directly, Mr. President. Crockett's voice was still calm, but steel existed underneath. Was it your strategy, your deliberate, intentional strategy to refuse payment to contractors, knowing that they couldn't afford to sue you, knowing that even if they prevailed, the legal fees would destroy them? Was that your business model? Let me read you something. She picked up another document. This is from a 1992 article in the Wall Street Journal. Quote, Mr. Trump's companies have filed numerous lawsuits and tangled repeatedly with small businesses over unpaid bills. Former associates say the delays and underpayments are part of a calculated business strategy. She looked up. A calculated business strategy, not accidents, not disputes, a strategy, a deliberate choice to use your money and your lawyers to crush people who couldn't fight back. That's fake news. The Wall Street Journal is fake news. They twist things. Let me attempt another source. Crockett picked up a different document. This is from a 2016 USA Today investigation. They discovered 3,500 lawsuits involving you and your companies over 4 decades. They interviewed dozens of contractors. Quote, the consistent pattern of repeated instances of non-payment suggests that stiffing contractors was standard operating procedure, not an aberration. She set the document down. Standard operating procedure, the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, court records from dozens of cases, they all describe the same pattern. She pulled out one more document. And this is from you, Mr. President, a 2007 deposition in a case involving unpaid bills to a catering company. The attorney asked you, is it your practice to pay contractors less than the agreed amount? Your answer, I pay what I think the work is worth. If they don't like it, they can sue me. She then asked, do you consider that fair? Your answer, I consider it smart. Crockett looked up at Trump. You consider it smart, that's what you stated under oath. Is that accurate? Trump's face was flushed. In business. Is that accurate, Mr. President? Do you consider it smart to pay people less than you agreed to pay them? If the work isn't up to standard. Edward Friel's work was up to standard. You never claimed otherwise. The cabinets were delivered on time, on budget, exactly as specified. You simply decided not to pay, and when he complained, you told him to sue. She gestured at the audience. Chen Wei Huang's work was up to standard. He performed the landscaping exactly as contracted. You paid him 20 cents on the dollar and threatened him with immigration. William Patterson's work was up to standard. You admitted it in the settlement negotiations. The work was fine, you just didn't desire to pay. So let me ask you again, was it your strategy to refuse payment for satisfactory work knowing that small contractors couldn't afford to combat you? Trump's voice rose. That's just smart business. Everyone does it. You don't pay full price if you can negotiate. You don't give money away. That's how the game is played. Any businessman will tell you. He stopped. The studio went silent. Crockett allowed the moment to hang. That's just smart business, she repeated slowly. You don't pay full price if you can negotiate. She turned to the audience, to Rebecca Friel Morrison, still standing, tears on her cheeks, to James Mitchell, whose business partner took his own life, to Maria Santos, whose mother still works at 74, to all of them. Did you hear that? That's just smart business. That's his defense. That's his explanation for destroying your lives, your families, your companies. He thinks it makes him smart. She turned back to Trump. Mr. President, you just confessed on national television. You admitted that refusing to pay people, crushing them with legal fees, destroying their businesses and their lives was your deliberate strategy, your smart business. That's not what It's exactly what you stated, and I possess it on tape, as does everyone watching at home. Trump was unraveling now. This is ridiculous. This is a witch hunt. A BC is fake news. You're all fake news. Mr. President, I don't have to stand here and be interrogated by a public defender, his voice cracked. I am the former president of the United States. I've built buildings. I've created thousands of jobs. What have you done? Defended criminals unable to afford anyone better. Crockett waited until he finished. Then she spoke, her tone quiet but carrying through the studio. I have defended people accused of crimes. Many of them were innocent. Many were railroaded by a system that assumes guilt before trial. Many were people exactly like the ones standing in this audience tonight. People who got crushed by someone with more money and more lawyers. And yes, I have defended people who are guilty because that's what the Constitution mandates. Everyone receives a defense. That's what separates us from dictatorships. That's what separates justice from power. She looked at Trump. But I have never, not once, defended someone who bragged about destroying small businesses, who laughed about crushing contractors with legal fees, who termed it smart business to take food off people's tables. You desire to know the difference between your lawyers and public defenders? Your lawyers protect you from the consequences of what you have performed. Public defenders protect people from being destroyed by men like you. Trump's face contorted. I don't have to listen to this. I don't have to. He ripped the microphone from his lapel. This was a setup from the beginning. These people were plants. The questions were rigged. He pointed at Crockett. And you're nothing. You're a nobody. You're just a... He stopped himself, but everyone heard the word he was reaching for. Everyone knew how that sentence was intended to conclude. Just a what, Mr. President? Crockett's voice was soft. Finish your sentence. Trump's mouth worked, but no sound emerged. Then he turned and stormed toward the exit. His handlers rushed from the wings, attempting to intercept him. I am finished. This is a disgrace. I don't answer to public defenders. He pushed past his aides and disappeared through the stage door. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Crockett stood alone on the stage. The 6 witnesses were still standing in the audience: Rebecca Friel Morrison, James Mitchell, Maria Santos, Robert Chen, the others, all of them watching, all of them waiting. Crockett turned to face the camera. He called me just a public defender. He stated I wasn't in his league. He stated he'd had superior lawyers fetch him coffee. She straightened her jacket. Here's what he never understood. Public defenders don't protect criminals. We protect the Constitution. We protect the principle that everyone deserves a fair shot. We protect people from being crushed by the powerful. She looked at the empty podium where Trump had stood. His lawyers spent 50 years protecting him from consequences, making his problems disappear, burying the truth under NDAs and settlements and endless delays. My job as a public defender was to ensure the truth emerged, to fight for people who couldn't fight for themselves, to stand up against a system engineered to crush them. She turned to the witnesses still standing. Edward Friel performed good work. He delivered on schedule and on budget. He deserved to be paid. He deserved to see his grandchildren. He deserved better than to die fighting a billionaire who thought the rules didn't apply to him. James Mitchell's partner deserved to see his business survive. Maria Santos's mother deserves to retire. Robert Chen's family deserved to keep their restaurant. They didn't lose because they performed anything wrong. They lost because they encountered a man who believes smart business means taking whatever you desire from whoever you are able. She looked at the camera. Tonight, that man confessed on live television. He told the entire country that crushing people with legal fees was his strategy, his smart business. He was proud of it. He still doesn't understand that it is wrong. She picked up her folders. He was correct about one thing. I am not in his league. I never desired to be. I desire to be in the league of people who fight for the powerless, who speak the truth even when it is difficult, who believe that justice should be for everyone, not just the people who can afford it. She smiled faintly. That's what public defenders perform, and tonight I think we performed it quite well. She turned and walked off stage. Behind her, the audience began to applaud, first one person, then 10, then all of them standing, clapping, some of them crying. Rebecca Friel Morrison was applauding too, tears streaming down her face. Her father was finally heard. The broadcast officially concluded at 10:23 p.m. Eastern, 67 minutes ahead of schedule. By 10:30, the clip was everywhere. Trump's voice, defiant and proud. That's just smart business. Everyone does it. You don't pay full price if you can negotiate. Hashtag, that's just smart business. Trended #1 within 20 minutes. By midnight, it had been viewed over 80 million times. By morning, 200 million. Hashtag just a public defender trended at #2. Hashtag pay your bills trended at #3. At 11:47 p.m., Trump posted on Truth Social, total setup, fake audience, planted questions. A BC is dead to me. At 12:15 a.m., I never said I don't pay my bills. Fake news is twisting my words. I pay everyone, ask anyone. At 12:43 a.m., the contractors in the audience were actors paid by Democrats, Someone should investigate. At 1:17 a.m., when I said smart business, I meant negotiation. Every businessman negotiates. That's not illegal. Witch hunt. At 2:04 a.m., can't sleep, too angry about the unfair treatment, but we will win because America sees through the lies. At 2:38 a.m., Jasmine Crockett is a nobody. Very low IQ, couldn't make it at a real law firm, total lightweight. At 3:15 a.m., going to sleep now, but let me be clear, I won tonight. Total victory, my lawyers are the best. Public defenders are losers. Everyone knows it. He had posted 37 times by 6 a.m., each post angrier than the last, each one proving Crockett's point more thoroughly than she ever could have herself. At 6:15 a.m., an advisor finally got through to him. Sir, every time you state smart business, you are making it worse. The lawyers are begging you to stop. Trump's response, posted at 6:23 a.m., my lawyers are the best, unlike public defenders who are losers. I know more about law than any lawyer. At 6:47 a.m., just spoke to my legal team. They agree I did nothing wrong. Negotiation is legal. The contractors should have worked harder. At 7:15 a.m., watching the fake news coverage, total lies, I always pay my bills. Ask anyone who matters. The parenthetical would haunt him within hours. It was its own hashtag anyone who matters. The morning shows were unanimous. He confessed. One legal analyst said on CNN, plain and simple, he admitted that refusing to pay contractors was a deliberate strategy that's potentially relevant to multiple ongoing civil cases. I have covered Trump for 8 years, another anchor stated. I have never witnessed him self-destruct like that. She didn't even have to push hard. She just asked questions calmly, and he told on himself. The moment those witnesses stood up, a commentator observed, the entire event changed. It wasn't about politics anymore. It was about people, real people whose lives were destroyed by a man who termed it smart business. On Fox News, the coverage was notably subdued. No clips of the confession were played. The few commentators who addressed it seemed uncomfortable. The president was passionate about defending his business record, one stated carefully. He admitted to not paying people, another pointed out. Well, he stated it was negotiation. He termed it smart business to crush people with legal fees. Awkward silence. Even Fox couldn't spin this one. Within 24 hours, the confession had become the most analyzed moment in political television history. Legal experts dissected it frame by frame. Body language analysts examined Trump's posture when he stated smart business. Linguists parsed the words, the rhythm, the revealing syntax of a man who didn't realize he was confessing. What is remarkable, one Harvard law professor told CNN, is that he's clearly proud of it. He's not offering an excuse. He's not claiming ignorance. He's explaining his strategy, and he believes it's a winning argument. He genuinely believes that everyone operates this way. That's the most damning part, she continued. He's not a businessman who sometimes cuts corners. He's a predator who built an empire on crushing people who couldn't fight back, and he told the entire country on live television while seemingly expecting them to be impressed. The clip was set to music, it was auto-tuned, it was remixed and memed and shared again. That's just smart business became a catchphrase used ironically whenever someone described obvious exploitation. A landlord raises rent by 300%? That's just smart business. A company cuts health care while giving executives bonuses. That's just smart business. A corporation dumps toxic waste in poor neighborhoods. That's just smart business. The phrase became shorthand for everything wrong with American capitalism, and Trump had handed it to his critics gift-wrapped. The legal consequences arrived faster than anyone anticipated. Within 48 hours, 3 separate law firms announced they were reopening cases against Trump that had been settled under duress. His admission that this was a deliberate strategy changes everything, one attorney stated. We now possess evidence of pattern and practice. Within a week, the New York Attorney General's office announced it was reviewing Trump's statement in connection with ongoing fraud investigations. Within a month, the "That's Just Smart Business" clip had been played in 3 courtrooms. Judges cited it. Opposing counsel quoted it. What Trump thought was a defense had become a confession that followed him everywhere. The contractors came forward, dozens of them, then hundreds, people who'd signed NDAs, who'd stayed quiet for decades, who suddenly felt permission to tell their stories. A website appeared, payyourbills.org. It compiled every known case of Trump-stiffing contractors. The list grew longer every day. By the end of the month, it documented over 3,500 separate incidents. Law schools requested copies of the broadcast. "This is a masterclass in cross-examination," one professor told the New York Times. "She never raised her voice, she never argued, she just asked questions, the right questions in the right order, and let him destroy himself. We will be teaching this for years." Public defender offices across the country reported a surge in applications. Young lawyers who'd been headed for corporate firms suddenly wanted to perform something that mattered. "I watched that broadcast," one applicant wrote in her personal statement, "and I realized that's what I desire to do. I desire to fight for people who can't fight for themselves." 3 months after the broadcast, Rebecca Friel Morrison testified before Congress. She told her father's story again: the contract, the betrayal, the years of fighting, the heart attack, the death. But this time she added something. "After the ABC broadcast, I received thousands of messages, thousands from people who'd had the same experience, contractors, small business owners, housekeepers, caterers, all of them with the same story. They performed the work, they didn't receive payment, and when they complained, they were told to sue." She paused. My father died believing he was alone, that he was the only one who'd been stupid enough to trust Donald Trump, that it was somehow his fault for not receiving payment. He wasn't alone. He was one of thousands, and it wasn't his fault. It was a strategy, a deliberate choice by a powerful man to take from the powerless. She looked at the committee members. "I am here to ask you to pass the Free Fair Payment Act. Enhanced penalties for corporations that systematically underpay contractors, mandatory arbitration timelines so cases can't be dragged out for years, legal fee protections so small businesses don't go bankrupt trying to collect what they are owed. My father can't be here, but perhaps if we perform this correctly, no one else's father will have to die fighting for what they earned." The bill passed the House 6 weeks later. It stalled in the Senate, but the conversation had begun, and across the country something else was happening, something quieter but no less significant. Small business owners started talking in diners and hardware stores and union halls. They shared stories they'd kept quiet for years: the client who didn't pay, the powerful company that crushed them with legal fees, the settlement they'd accepted just to survive. A support group formed online, stiffed by the powerful. Within 3 months, it possessed 50,000 members. People who'd never met each other discovered they shared the same experience, the same shame, the same feeling that they'd failed somehow when in reality they'd been victims. "I thought I was the only one," a former caterer from Atlantic City wrote. "I thought there was something wrong with me for not receiving payment for 30 years. I thought that, and now I know it wasn't me, it was never me, it was him, it was always him." A class-action lawsuit was filed against the Trump Organization alleging a pattern and practice of systematic underpayment. The plaintiffs numbered in the hundreds. More came forward every week. The "that's just smart business" defense became a rallying cry for labor advocates. "When the powerful tell you that exploitation is smart," one organizer stated, "they are telling you who they are. Believe them." 6 months after the broadcast, Jasmine Crockett gave the keynote address at the National Public Defender Conference in Chicago. 2,000 public defenders filled the auditorium. They gave her a standing ovation before she uttered a word. Many of them were wearing T-shirts with variations of the same message: "Just a public defender." Some had added their own touches. "Just a public defender who made a billionaire confess." "Just a public defender, Your Honor." Crockett waited for the applause to fade. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but carried through the room. "He called us just public defenders," she began. "He stated we were lawyers who couldn't make it anywhere else. He stated he'd had superior lawyers fetch him coffee." She smiled. "I desire to thank him for that because he reminded the entire country what we actually perform." She looked at the audience, at the tired eyes and worn suits and stubborn idealism that defined her profession. "We don't perform it for the money. God knows we don't perform it for the money." Laughter rippled through the room. We don't perform it for the prestige. We don't perform it because it is easy. We perform it because someone has to, because the Constitution demands it, because every person accused of a crime, every single one, deserves someone who will fight for them. We fight against impossible odds. We fight with too many cases and too few resources. We fight in courtrooms where the deck is stacked against our clients before we even open our mouths. And sometimes, more often than the world knows, we win, not because we are smarter than the prosecutors or better funded than the state, but because we work harder, because we care more, because when everyone else has given up on someone, we are still standing. She paused. Donald Trump has spent his life surrounded by lawyers who tell him he's right. Lawyers who make problems disappear, lawyers who've never lost a night's sleep over a client facing decades in prison. He thought that made them better than us. He thought it meant they were in a different league. But here's what he never understood. There is no league. There are just lawyers who fight for power and lawyers who fight for people. And on the night when it mattered, when the cameras were rolling and the entire country was watching, the lawyer who fights for people won. She looked at the audience. He thought public defender was an insult. We made it a badge of honor. He thought we were beneath him. We showed him we were the ones he should have feared all along because we are the lawyers who aren't afraid of powerful people. We are the lawyers who pose the hard questions. We are the lawyers who don't care about billionaires or corner offices or $2,000 hourly fees. We care about the truth. We care about justice. We care about people, real people with real lives who deserve someone in their corner, and the truth always emerges. She raised her fist. We are public defenders. We are not to be dismissed, and we are just commencing. The applause was thunderous. It continued for 5 minutes. Some people were crying, some were cheering. All of them were standing. When it finally faded, one young public defender in the front row called out, "Miss Crockett, what is next?" Crockett smiled. What is next? We keep fighting every day in every courtroom for every person who can't afford anyone else. That's what we perform. That's who we are. Just public defenders. 1 year after the broadcast, Rebecca Friel Morrison received a package in the mail. Inside was a framed photograph, the split-screen moment from ABC, Trump red-faced and shouting next to Crockett, calm and composed. With it was a note, handwritten, "Your father performed beautiful work. He deserved to be paid. He deserved to see his grandchildren. He deserved justice. We couldn't give him that, but we gave him something else, the truth." After 30 years, the entire world finally knows what happened to him, what happened to all of them. He wasn't forgotten. He won't be forgotten. Thank you for standing up, Jasmine Crockett. Rebecca hung the photograph in her living room. Next to it, she placed a picture of her father, young, smiling, standing in front of the cabinet shop that had been his pride. She touched the glass gently. "They finally heard you, Dad," she whispered. "They finally heard you." He called her just a public defender. By the end of the night, he'd confessed to a 50-year pattern of crushing small businesses and termed it smart business. The clip has been played in 3 courtrooms. The Free Fair Payment Act is moving through Congress, and public defenders across America possess a new answer when someone attempts to dismiss them. If this story moved you, share it with someone who's ever been stiffed by someone with more money. Share it with anyone who's been told they aren't in the league of the powerful. Share it with anyone who believes justice should be for everyone. And the next time someone tells you public defenders are second-rate lawyers, remember, they are the ones who aren't afraid to pose the hard questions. That's just smart justice.